Welcome to a series called The End of Times, where we're going through the book of Revelation, verse by verse, to see what it is we can expect to happen and what it is we should be doing in the end times. And as we've gone through the book of Revelation, we've hit a place where we spent probably the last 12 to 15 episodes, if not more, on, and that's the harlot who is on the beast. And we've spent many episodes going into great detail of what that beast is. It's a satanic spirit that dominates empires throughout the history. And the reason they're even in the Bible is because these satanic empires, just like we saw in Revelation 12, where the dragon is trying to devour the woman, Israel, who gives birth to a son, Jesus. And then from then on, he just tries to devour Jesus's offspring, essentially, us. So what we're looking at is these seven heads have been seven satanically, spiritually driven nations who have scattered, enslaved, or destroyed, or a combination of all those things, Israel. And now we're looking at this final empire, and it is made up of 10 kings based on the 10 horns. And there's a harlot riding it, which is a nation of Babylon, which is a gluttonous spending nation that buys as much as they can. They're deeply engaged in pornography and all sorts of sexual immorality. The kings of the earth have indulged with her sexual immoralities. And she sits on many waters, which means that she is made up of many tribes, nations, tongues, this nation of Babylon. And we're just going to pick it up right there where the angel is kind of explaining to John what these things are, and we just wrapped up those seven heads, so we're just going to pick it up right where we left off. Now I want to take this time to encourage you to go back and watch other episodes. You can't just jump into Revelation like so many people are doing, and I want to wholeheartedly, really thank those of you who have followed just verse by verse. God laid it out perfectly. You can't just jump in and be an expert because somebody told you something about one verse. So with that being said, there's a lot of assumptions that we make in these videos that you watch the other episodes and that you know some things. So with that being said, let's pick it up where we left off. Revelation 17, starting verse 12. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. And he said to me, the waters which you saw, where the harlot sits, are peoples, multitude, nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Now, I want to kind of pause right there because we're going to address that particular verse on the next episode. So I don't want to leave that hanging, because what we're doing is we're now looking at the destruction of Babylon with more detail than we got in other parts of Revelation. This is an important piece. It's essentially God performing justice on the harlot. So we'll come back to this war, this burning her with fire, making her desolate, naked, these 10 horns doing this to the harlot. It's very important. So we'll come back to that. But we're going to keep going. Just know that. Just put that little pin in there. We're coming back to that. For God has put it in their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind and give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Now, we're going to come back again to them burning with fire. Now, God is also putting that in their hearts, and that's an important note too. They're essentially through evil serving his purposes. It's a brilliant thing, and we will come back to that. But I want to talk about the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth, this Babylon, because when we saw Babylon getting destroyed early in Revelation, it was a third of the earth. It wasn't a city. This is everything that we see in Revelation talks about Babylon as a nation. Everything we see about it talks about it as a nation until we get to this passage of a city. Now, I want to specifically address that word city, because everywhere in the New Testament, when you see the word city in the New Testament, this is in Greek, when you see the word city, it's polios, it's a city. and that's P-O-L-O-E-S. And then anytime you see the word town, it's polion, and that means town, P-O-L-E-O-N. Here, this word is very different. It's the word polis, which is P-O-L-I-S. Now, if you look at the Strong Concordance on what polis means, it says probably city or town is what it says. And there's a lot of, it's a very close word. But if you really look at what polis means and what it has represented over time, you start to see something very different. Polios and polion, city and town, polis, P-O-L-I-S. Now, let's start with this word. Essentially comes from the polion in general, or the polis, the P-O-L-I-S, was ultimately, it's a city. It's from Acropolis. It's the national city of Acropolis, Athens. And that's an important note to make, because what Acropolis was first, it was referred to as the Republic. That's where that term, the Republic, came from, was Acropolis. It was a national city-state that took care of all of the money. It took care of all of the political aspects. It was considered the Republic, is what they referred to as Acropolis as. And Acropolis became referred to as the Republic. Even more so, it's a free, independent state. It means we are a free, independent state, is what Greece is essentially declaring through Acropolis. Now, beyond that, Palamas is essentially a multi-theistic national spirit of war. So anytime there was this national spirit of war coming up, that was referred to as Palamas. So ultimately what you have here is you have this national pagan spirit of warfare that revolves around the Republic, that revolves around this free, independent state. So ultimately what you have in Paulus is he's saying, when you look at what Paulus really means, not just, well, it probably means city or town. And again, look it up in your Strong Concordance or Google it. But if you look at what Paulus actually means, it is essentially a multi-theistic, multi-gods spirit, pagan spirit of warfare, built behind the Greek Republic that declares themselves to be the financial rulers of the world, as well as the political rulers of the world. And that fits better with what Babylon is. So, you know what? I know a lot of things say city, and maybe it does mean city, but everywhere else you look, especially if you look at the places where John wrote the word city, it's Paulios, not Paulus. And one last thing is that because of what Paulus represented, it was a multi-theistic spirit of war that controlled everybody. They controlled the laws. They controlled the finances. They controlled everything during this time of this empire controlling the world. And the Romans just adopted that word polis because Rome itself is, or was, a polis. It was a national spirit of multi-theistic warfare that controlled Israel, controlled the finances, controlled the politics, and they really controlled everything. And that's what that term polis is. I mean, that fits way better than just maybe city or town, because it's similar to these other words. If it's similar to any word, if we're going to say, what is this? It's either going to be associated with Acropolis, or it's going to be associated with Polemius, or it's actually going to be associated with police, P-O-L-I-C-E, which is where we get the words police. It's a spirit of, well, now I am running the law. I am in control. I am in control of the finances. And the nation that's most like the description of Babylon has been policing the world as long as I've been alive. And I think it's important that when you see a word and you think, well, if it just doesn't make sense, well, why would this be a city when everywhere else in the Bible describes it as being a third of the earth? then look at that word. And this is a prime example of making a lot of assumptions based off of interpretation of ancient Greek. A lot of assumptions here. And again, the reason I don't think it's the word city is because everywhere else in the New Testament in Greek where you see the word city, especially where John himself wrote the word city, who was writing the word city here, he used the word polios, not polis. So I think it's very important we at least talk about that as we move forward in Babylon. Because what people say was, oh, well, that's a city. That can't be a third of the earth. It's just a city. Well, you know, maybe it is. But it's probably not. It makes more sense to me. It doesn't fit, first of all, in the description of the destruction of Babylon elsewhere in the Bible. And beyond that, everywhere John used that word, he didn't use the word polis. And beyond that, it actually literally means an independent, free republic that controls the finances, controls the laws, controls the politics, and controls the warfare through a national, pagan, multi-theistic spirit of war. And that's what the Greeks did. It was very multi-theistic spirit of war. You had all these different warlords who would do certain things for them. And so, you know, I just want to throw that out there, that I'm not going to, as I move forward, I'm not looking at Babylon as a city just because in one place it refers to it as a city and uses the wrong word. So as we move forward, I think it's important we at least make that note. Maybe it's a city. Doesn't seem to fit anywhere else in the Bible that it be a city, and nowhere else do they use this word polis as city. So love to hear any thoughts or insight on that. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. There's just a lot of assumptions being taken here. And to me, it fits more significantly that this Babylon, this nation of Babylon, that's a gluttonous spender, deep in pornography, also made up of many nations, multitudes of tongues, tribes, religions, that kind of thing, also is literally got a cup filled with the blood of the saints. And it says here they're making war with the Lamb and the saints, that it makes more sense that what we're talking about here in Babylon is we're talking about a national, pagan, multi-theistic spirit of war in what's referred to as the Republic, which controls the finances of the world, it controls the commerce of the world. It's the strongest military power in the world and is combined with kings who also make it an even stronger empire. And to top it all off, they're making the laws and they're policing the world. So have to throw that out there. You know, a lot of times, and that's why I don't look at other people's commentary on this channel. I just compare it to what it says in the Bible, and this to me, this is what it says. So love to hear any thoughts or insight on that. Put it in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel with Patreon. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests. So don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.